Good evening, and you're watching In Session with me, Raj Arya. Now, many have said that 2016 is going to be an extremely challenging year for all industries concerned, especially property development. But is that fact or fiction? Well, today we're going to find the answer to that question when we interview Joanne, the CEO and Managing Director of KSK Land.
Joanne was born and bred in Malaysia. She started her career in the United Kingdom, being a graduate of the University College of London and the London School of Economics. She joined Deutsche Bank London as an associate in 2007, covering securitization. Right after the golden time came the Lehman Brothers and the American International Group crisis, which marked her one-year career in the industry. After living in London for over 10 years and working at Deutsche Bank for several years, she finally decided to return to Malaysia. Joanne joined Kuala in 2010 where she played two roles. She was the Group CEO for Kuala Asia and a risk advisor for Kuala Insurance. Moving on from there, they rebranded to KSK Group and privatized the firm, as well as commenced KSK Land in Berhad. She took up the position of Group CEO for KSK Group and Managing Director for KSK Land. Currently, KSK Land is 2 years old and is debuting its maiden project at Conlay.
So Joanne, I understand that you had a very interesting journey throughout your career from your days in London and back in Malaysia. Could you just share with our viewers a bit about it?
Okay, so I came back to Malaysia about 5 years ago. I was previously working in London for about 4 years of my career. I was working at Deutsche Bank at that time. It was a very interesting period because I think everybody can remember it was during the Lehman Brothers crisis and I was in the center of it. And then 4 years on, I realized that Asia was booming and it was very interesting, and all the markets were turning in Asia. So I decided to come back and join the group. And KSK Group at that time was called Kuala Asia Berhad.
Right. Now, it's a vast difference, although you're still in the financial industry, from the fast-paced investment banking in London and back in Malaysia, where general insurance seems to be more at a walking pace by comparison. How did you find the transition?
First, I think there's two parts to this, right? One is actually moving from a city like London and then working in investment banking, and then coming back to Asia and coming back to Malaysia. But in that sense, actually, Malaysia is home, so KL is a place that I'm very familiar with. Coming into insurance, insurance is, for me, our family business. Coming from Korea, so I grew up, even though I didn't really work in an insurance company before, but it's family business and I understand the business very well. Moving into the industry, it's been a very interesting ride. I think insurance is, I'm a little bit biased, insurance is actually pretty interesting. It's actually quite a sexy form of financial institution.
Sexy.
That's why I like to think, there's a lot of technicalities involved, from doing underwriting all the way to claims and providing services to people. So I think that's really the crux of what insurance is all about.
Right. Now, what was the one biggest lesson you managed to acquire while in London that you managed to bring over to Malaysia in your capacity in terms of running the insurance business here?
When I was in London, I was focused a lot on risk management. So I think probably technically, that's the biggest contribution that I took back and actually brought back to Korea at that time. When I was in Korea, Malaysia, I was taking up the risk management role. So very focused on putting processes around controls and how do we manage the processes in the company, and how do we gauge in terms of enterprise risk management. In effect, our business is also about risk. I think second to that is, learning from the crisis of being in a crisis. I think you learn a lot from being in the center of what can really go wrong, and taking that on, even going into insurance, is also a financial institution space. So coming back during that time, you could see the regulations actually changing and talking about capital management and how do you really manage capital. So I think from a technical perspective, that's the biggest contribution so far.
Fantastic, Joanne. It's always important to keep your house in order.
Yes.
And as I say, prevention is always better better than the cure. Well, we'll be taking a quick commercial break right now, but when we come back, we're going to delve more in terms of property development. That's right, a topic that is on the lips of everyone in terms of availability right here smack in the Klang Valley. To find out more, stay tuned with us here on In Session. Welcome back to In Session with me, Raj Arya. I'm with Joanne, the CEO and Managing Director of KSK Land. Now, Joanne, I understand that KSK Group has actually diversified into property development. Can you just share with us a bit on how that occurred?
Okay, so KSK Group, as you know, we used to be called Kurnia Asia Berhad. And we used to own Kurnia Insurance, and Kurnia Insurance used to do business in Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. So today, KSK Group has two core businesses. One is insurance, still in Thailand and Indonesia, and KSK Land. So 2 years ago, we actually diversified into property development. Before we actually took the company private, that decision to go into property development was not immediate sort of decision. I think in hindsight, our chairman had already been thinking of, his vision was always to be a conglomerate, a diversified conglomerate. So as part and parcel of the bigger strategy was, for a very long time, how would we do that? So the opportunity came when we sold Kurnia Malaysia, and we did the sale we completed the sale about 3 years ago. And since then, we decided that's the time to actually journey into property development.
Right. Now, on a more personal note, in terms of risk management, we can see in recent years there's a fair number of projects, especially the high-end ones taking place in Malaysia. So when you boil down to the basics of economics, when we're talking about supply and demand, there's a feeling in the market there seems to be a potential glut. So from your perspective, what's your take on that?
I think that's a very general statement to make. I don't think that there is, a general glut. I think it depends on, property is really all about the location and where do you actually, you have to segregate it, and it's actually very, very localized. So for us, where we focus on, it's always first and foremost looking at the location. So when we look at, as KSK Land, when we look at land bank and where we really buy into, location is always the number one priority for us, and that's why our current focus is only in the prime areas in Klang Valley and in places like, for example, Penang, and that's it. And that's also why our debut project, 8 Conlay, is right in the city centre, on the Bukit Bintang belt in the Golden Triangle. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Coming from my experience in London, when I was looking at a lot of mortgages, properties, we go through cycles every few years. There's always a down cycle and always an up cycle. And in my personal experience, whether it's a down cycle or up cycle, in central locations where land is always very scarce, there is no more supply, right? So in those areas, you would see a trend of, if the entire economy is slowing down a little bit, that's where the price point will always either maintain or there will always be just a slight increase, because there will always be people, looking to buy into these areas, or they will be holding.
Right, yes, makes sense. Now, in the last 2 years, there's considerable development changes over time, even with Bank Negara stepping in and restricting in terms of things like margin of financing, dips, which a lot of property developers, of course, face greater uncertainty. So, in the 2 years which you've been on board in this new environment, what are your thoughts in terms of all these recent developments?
I think it depends on which is the target market that you're actually looking at. For example, for our debut project, 8 Conlay, we are also selling branded residences. And branded residences, as everybody know, it's a level above luxury residences. So people who buy branded residences are people who actually buy it for capital appreciation and they keep for a period of time. And these kind of people are people who already have a certain wealth behind them. And our target market also for 8 Conlay is 50% foreign and 50% local. So for us, we look at it as the spread is very, very wide. So that when we went into property development also, we're not looking at property development just for now. We're looking at a business at a long term. So we will have to weed out the cycle and, you know, just build good quality products, because I think people are also getting a little bit more discerning these days. So whatever that they buy, if it's in that particular location, they will actually sieve through the type of products and choose, you know, the product that will actually have good quality and good services, because good services are also very important. When you buy a property for capital appreciation or capital investment, you are also looking at how the property is being maintained. Right. That's also one of the factors that are very important to us, and that's what we look at when we look at the projects that we actually built.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now you mentioned about all this value added and differentiating yourselves from other projects out there. What are the unique features of your property development that stands out from that of others around Klang Valley, for example?
Yeah. So for example, our debut project, 8 Conlay. 8 Conlay is the name of the development, and out of that we have our branded residences called U8 serviced by Kempinski. So I think looking back, branded residences is actually a very niche product, and it's a product in Malaysia and in KL that's actually at a very infant stage, as opposed to branded residences in, for example, Bangkok, New York, London. In those markets, branded residences today in KL only has hotel residences brand attached to it, and that's probably the biggest definition of branded residences at the moment. But with U8 Service by Kempinski, we're taking branded residences to another level and another notch. And I would like to sort of, put it in a perspective where it's a little bit like a triangle, where you think about not only services, where the hotel comes in, the hotel brand comes in, but it's also about design. So you think about design all the way from externally all the way to internally. So architecture comes into play as well, and that forms the triangle. So that's a combination of both that we try to differentiate ourselves. And I think that's also where branded residences have gone in places like London, for example. If I can quote an example, it's like One Hyde Park. Everybody knows One Hyde Park. When it was launched for one of the highest per square foot in London. There they had a design firm that was very popular at that time, and everybody knows the track record of the design firm. The services was provided by Mandarin Oriental. And then, architecturally, there was a lot of talk about it as well, which comes into the quality. So in short, why do we put design from architect all the way to ID and also services in place, and we call them the ultimate branded residence? It's the quality and the customer experience. So it's the customer journey that we have to really focus in, from walking all the way when you step from outside of what your price property will be, all the way to inside your cozy apartment and how you feel when you walk into your apartment. So everything has to be thought out all the way through.
Right, fantastic. Now, conceptually, it sounds really amazing, taking it to the next level in terms of differentiating and creating perhaps an iconic development right here in Malaysia. One of the greatest concerns from perhaps the consumer's perspective is concept-wise, fantastic, but being a new company, track record. That's right, compared to the more established developers out there who has been around 20, 30 years and which has a large portfolio. How do you address that concern?
So I think there's two parts to this. One is KSK Land has now been established for 2 years. The team behind KSK Land are people who have been in the property industry for at least 20 years. I think in total, if we add the entire team's years of experience, it's probably around 80. So that's internally and who we are. We give comfort to our buyers by saying that, look, this is the reason why we do branded residence. We partner up with Kempinski. Everybody knows Kempinski. Kempinski is Europe's oldest hotelier, and they come with more than 100 years of track record of building a 5-star hotel. So services is everything to them. They have perfected what service is all about. And then, we partnered up also with U. U is a very world-renowned design firm who is founded by John Hitchcock and actually Philip Stark. I'm sure everybody knows Philip Stark. And there, they have a whole range of celebrated interior designers behind them who have had 20 over years of doing interior design and are celebrities in their own right in interior design. So that's the type of comfort we would give people as well. Today, we launched the first phase of our branded residences. We have a sales gallery on site. I think that's very important. It's important to tell your buyers and showcase a little bit what we can actually produce. And then coming on from that, all the other partners and consultants that we put together for 8 Conlay have been in the industry, and they are all veterans of the industry. So I think holistically, that's what we bring.
Right. Yeah. Now, you just mentioned about the launch. How has the response been like, and the feedback that you have gotten from the market?
When we launched in November, we had 70% reserved for the first phase.
Wow.
And actually 80% of that are actually Malaysians. So we ourselves were also pleasantly surprised. And I think that's a testament to actually what people actually look for, is that they're looking for something, they're filtering through and actually looking for good quality properties that actually make sense. And I think it's also, the other part is also a tribute back to the location that we're also in. People talk about a lot of supply in the market, but in the Golden Triangle area, there's really not much left available for us.
That's right. As you mentioned, location. That's right, when it comes to property development. All right, Joanne, hold that thought for a moment, because we have to take another quick commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to break down the facts and figures behind this fantastic property development project. So stay with me, Raj Arya, here on In Session. Welcome back to In Session with me, Raj Arya, for the final part of this interview with Joanne Kwa. Now, earlier you mentioned something very interesting, that the response from the locals has been fantastic, and it does shift that misconception that it's only the foreigners or the foreign market who are able to afford a development such as yourself.
Yeah, it is. As I said earlier, we were also very pleasantly surprised. I think, again, I think if people are in Malaysia actually buying property as a form of investment, they also look for an investment for the long term that they can keep. So we want to, give people something that they are also proud of, that they want to keep for this generation or the next generation to come. And that's why I think people look at a product like ours, where branded residence also means that Kempinski providing that service means that your property, you can sleep easy knowing that your property is managed and is taken care of, and maintenance is always very key, and that keeps the value of your property up.
Right. Well, now there could seem to be an economic downturn here in Malaysia, as we have observed from the weakening ringgit against the US dollar. But does that provide an opportunity when it comes to targeting foreign investors? Because property today is so much cheaper compared to 12 months ago. Would that be something you all are aggressively exploring abroad right now?
Yes, and that's why earlier I mentioned as well that our target market is 50% local and 50% foreign. When we launched, we had only launched actually foreign markets such as Shanghai, officially going out to Shanghai. But we are also targeting other markets like Hong Kong, Singapore, Taipei, the Middle East, and other regions as well. So this is a very good opportunity for us, I would say. Yes, definitely.
That's right.
And also coupled with the fact that branded residences around the world, people who buy branded residences don't only buy in KL, they also look, they have a wide choice, so they look at every other city as well. So KL, branded residences in KL, in comparison with other markets, not just the factor of the ringgit, but it's also the fact that we are probably one of the most affordable branded residences, yet the quality of branded residences has to be the same, whether you are in KL or whether you're in Singapore or whether you're in London.
Right, makes a lot of sense. Now, coming back to something which was very important location-wise, we all know that land banks in KL is extremely scarce, especially in the city centre area. So it would have been quite challenging at that point in time in terms of finding a plot of land which is yet to be developed
Sure.
by anyone. But looks like you found one. Was that a very tedious, long process?
It was not a very tedious, long process. I think I might sound a little bit cheesy, but it's a bit of luck as well. But I think coming from the insurance background, we are friends with people in various industries. So I think relationships is, at the heart and core of who we are. And so I think because of that, we stumbled upon this opportunity as well. Before we were looking at 8 Conlay, we were also looking at a lot of opportunities. But as I said before, KSK Land's focus is very much into prime land and what can we add value with that prime land. So that's why we decided as our debut project to go with the land at 8 Conlay today.
Right. Now, moving forward, you have described very quickly in terms of what 8 Conlay is all about. Could you just share us a bit more in terms of the numbers, for example, given the fact that it's such prime property, how much is it per square foot on
we're
average?
currently marketing today at 3,200 ringgit per square foot. It's fully furnished. The unit sizes ranges from 700 square feet to 1,300 square feet. And the first tower of our branded residences, called U8 Service by Kempinski, is designed by Steve Leong and you.
Right. How many units does that first tower have?
The first tower has 568 units.
Right, amazing. So this is something which you're looking at in terms of taking it to the next level as well, in
Sure.
terms of living in the
Yes.
heart of Kuala Lumpur.
Yes.
Now, I understand it's a mixed development, right? So there are other areas where you provide convenience, comfort. Could you elaborate a bit more about that on the retail side, perhaps, what to expect?
Sure. So 8 Conlay is actually a fully integrated commercial development, and what that means is that apart from our branded residences component, we actually are also building a Kempinski hotel in Kuala Lumpur. It's going to be the first and only Kempinski hotel in Kuala Lumpur. It's a 260 key hotel, 5-star hotel, and on top of that we have Kempinski Residences, which is it's like a hotel, and it's actually for long let stay. At the bottom we actually have our podium, which is we like to call it our lifestyle retail quarters. It's a 4-story retail podium sitting on it's a 9-story retail podium, but the retail is 4 floors.
Right. Now, I would just like to tap your expertise to take a step back. Now, we have just started 2016. What's your outlook of the property market based on your own personal analysis?
Cautiously optimistic. That
Very
would
good
be
answer.
my answer to this. I think it depends what type of property you are looking at. I would be a little bit more cautious moving forward. I think it would be like what everybody says, it would be a slow start. But moving on, perhaps 6 months down the road, things will get a little bit better and look a little bit more rosy.
Right. And in particular for KSK Land, what is the immediate challenge you face moving forward right now? Biggest challenge, perhaps?
Our biggest challenge, I think it's really to work on 8 Conlay, getting it up, proving to the market that we're doing the right things. We've already started construction for 8 Conlay. So, I think people are all waiting and seeing to see if, what we say, we have to walk the talk, really. And really going out to the foreign markets now, because we're launching in all different markets apart from KL. So going out there and really selling Malaysia and selling our development, which is smack bang in the city centre.
Right. Now, from your perspective, obviously, it's very important that the market that you're targeting right now is very different from the mass market, for example. So what kind of personal touch that your sales team has given in order to show them that this is something worthy to be part of?
Sure. We don't go out and tell people that we're selling a product. We don't go out and tell people we're selling an apartment. We go out and tell people that we're selling lifestyle. And I think that is fundamentally very important. If you talk about lifestyle, then you're buying something that you would aspire to want to live in, or where you want to live in, or you can already live in. And I think that's really, really important. I look at myself as the customer as well.
Of course.
And I say, you know, if can I build something that I would really want to live in? And that's the most, if the answer is yes, then we will be confident that a lot more people will think the same. Yeah.
Right, right. Now, moving forward, as we all know, market trends tend to change over time. Probably, perhaps when it started 2 years ago, when you came about, and now 2 years later, it's constantly evolving. How do you adapt to the market trend? Have you stuck to your game plan from day one, or today it's vastly different from where you were before?
No, we have actually pretty much stuck to our game plan. It was go from the start, and you know, there's really no turning back. When we first came out to the market and talked about 8 Conlay, we were talking at about a price point of 2,700 ringgit PSF.
Yep.
Today we're talking about 3,200 ringgit PSF. I think what's most important is, you know, we talk about property cycles where there's ups and downs. But I think fundamentally what's most important is, you know, at the core of the business is you have to understand the land opportunities that you're looking at. Really look at the area that you are actually looking at that land, and really thinking, okay, what can I add value to that land? What can I build that will take it to another level and add value? And I think that's what KSK Land is all about.
Right, fantastic. Well, we're almost running out of time. Very quickly, perhaps you could give a tip to some of our viewers out there who are potential home investors who would like to buy a property in the future. What are the key elements which they should look at in terms of buying that one property for themselves?
Of course, as I mentioned before, number one, location is very important. You want to buy your property at prime location. And number two, if you're buying for capital, preserving capital value and capital appreciation, then look for properties where maintenance and service is very important. So, you know, for me personally, that's what I would look for. And if your property is very well maintained and serviced, that will actually keep your capital values as well.
That's right, that's right. Keeping the value of the capital appreciation is a very, very important point which people will tend to look for before because it's one of the largest investments they can make in one's lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Joanne, thank you so much for your time today. And there you have it. And insights on 8 Conlay, possibly a future iconic development right here at the heart of Klang Valley. So something perhaps some of us would like to aspire in terms of achieving that lifestyle experience. With that, my name is Raj Arya, concluding another edition of In Session. We do hope to see you same place, same time next week. Have a great evening.